This weird-looking train car is from the 1895 Lookout Mountain Incline number 2. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. So the train car itself is sitting level right now. But what about these end platforms? Well, the platforms at one end, at the lower end where the climb isn't quite so steep, are pointing downward at an unpleasant angle when you get in. And there's stairs inside which also have that same funny angle. When you get to the top, which is the steeper part of the incline, it's actually backwards. So they load and unload these from the uphill side of the car. And when you climb in from the uphill side of the car at the lower station, the stairs are bent so that they slope backwards, and you're kind of climbing up a ramp with stairs on it. You get to the top, and the slope has gotten so steep, it's actually going the other way around now. And you're going down a steep climb. This isn't actually the first tourist incline railway up Lookout Mountain. That was incline number 1 from 1887. Incline number 1 was mostly focused on bringing tourists up to the top of the mountain, specifically to stay at a hotel up there, while incline number 2, which opened November 16, 1895, was really focused more on being a scenic tourist railroad. Running from the St. Elmo neighborhood of Chattanooga, Tennessee, to Point Park atop Lookout Mountain, this is a cable-powered, incline-plane funicular railway. As is the case with most, if not all, steep incline railways, all the seats face downhill, so the uphill view of the trip is, unfortunately, pretty limited. The car itself has limited controls, and you're looking at them. Controls for lights, and a big lever for the emergency manual brake, and that's it. Since we can't really see too well going up the mountain, let's talk a bit more about the history and technology on the way up, then we'll enjoy the view on the way back down. So first, what is an incline plane funicular railway anyway? Incline plane is going up a steep climb as opposed to running on relatively level ground. At 72.7%, or about 36 degrees, the Lookout Mountain Incline Railway claims to be the world's steepest passenger incline railway. We'll come back to the technology in a minute, but first, about that record. Is it really the world's steepest? Well, sort of. The first contender is Steepest in Switzerland. With a max climb of 110%, or about 47 degrees, it does connect between two villages, but it uses rotating pods instead of anything like a normal railroad car. Because of this, it's often not considered to be a traditional passenger railroad. The second contender is the Katoomba Scenic Railway in Australia, which does use standard cars and has 128% ascent, or about 52 degrees at its steepest. This would seem to qualify, except both ends are actually inside a scenic park, making it more of a ride than a regular operating passenger railroad. So whether you consider it truly to be the steepest or not, the Lookout Mountain Incline Railway is obviously way too steep in any case for any standard locomotive. So instead, they actually use cables to drag the cars up and down the mountain. At Lookout Mountain, they run a pair of 2-mile, 3.2 kilometer long cables for the 1-mile or 1.6 kilometer long route. Some places use only one cable, but they use 2 here as an extra safety measure. Also, since the entire road is on the same incline, although the slope does vary quite a bit, there's no bottom cable connecting the cars, which some inclines use if they have level sections. The rail design actually varies quite a bit from funicular to funicular. This is the first funicular railroad I ever rode back when I was a kid. Built in 1966, this is the 4-rail Falls Incline Railway at Niagara Falls in Ontario, Canada. 2 basic cars connected with a single cable across the top. Buried in that platform at the top is an equipment room with an engine which pulls the cable back and forth. Since the cars weigh the same, you don't need all that much power. you're really only moving the difference in weight between the passengers on the two cars, which means it's actually very efficient. Here at the Lookout Mountain Incline Railway, they actually use a combination of both 2-rail and 3-rail tracks, which are actually a bit more complex, but it's a lot easier to see on the way back down. For now, though, let's talk about the cars. They've had a lot of cars here at Lookout Mountain. The original wooden cars were pulled by a coal-fired steam engine at the top. Unfortunately, at just over a year old, they experienced their first fire at the upper station, completely destroying it. They rebuilt and became so much more popular than Incline Number 1 that Number 1 actually closed permanently in 1899, being dismantled in 1900. Anyway, the system was converted from coal-fired steam to an electric motor in 1911, which also appears to be when they installed overhead electric lines to provide electrical power to the cars. In March 1919, there was another fire at the upper station, destroying it and one of the cars. This fire thing seems to be kind of a bad habit here at Lookout Mountain. After being closed for 2 years, they reopened with new, larger cars that were actually equipped with heaters for the first time. They went through some other designs, and in 2020, the current cars were purchased with more windows, wheelchair access, and still better heating. Well, do you remember that bad habit that I mentioned? On December 7th, 2024, a nearby rock slide led to a wildfire which swept across the tracks, destroying the upper trestle, the rails, rail bed, and worst of all, snapping the pair of 2-mile-long cables. If you remember that emergency brake lever that I mentioned, well, there's actually an automatic version of that as well. According to one of the conductors I spoke with, as the fire approached, they sent the top car down below the fire to protect it. When the cables snapped, the cars dropped. The upper car, on a steep part of the track at the time, actually went down the track about 300 feet before the automatic brakes completely stopped it, undamaged. On July 17th, 2025, with all repairs completed, they reopened the railway, and it's been running since. But now we're approaching the upper station, which really has something special for anyone interested in funiculars.
All right, folks, please remain seated till we come to a complete stop. Trains leave.
After zigzagging up and down a couple flights of stairs, you get down to the equipment room in the basement of the upper station. So here we have a pair of 100 horsepower electric motors to power the system, but the really interesting part is if we follow the cables through the system. This cable is attached to the car coming up the incline right now. It enters at the top and crosses over to the big powered main wheel called a bull wheel or tractor wheel. It goes around that and comes out the bottom and goes onto this big idler pulley. It goes around the idler pulley and from there it goes back over to the bull wheel again. Going around the bull wheel twice actually gives it considerably more traction. You're less likely to have cable slip. From the bottom of the bull wheel, it exits through the bottom here with the cables headed to the car going down the incline. Now let's step outside to see where they go from here. Here you have a couple of giant pulleys to guide the cables headed down the incline. The one on the left is going down, and the one on the right is headed back up. The space that I didn't get into here, just above those pulleys, that's for the actual engineer who runs everything. He has a radio link to the conductors in each of the cars to verify they're ready to start moving, and if anything comes up and they need to stop. When everyone's ready, the engineer is the one that actually starts and stops everything from that booth. But I think he does it with a bit of electronic help. Let's go watch the next car come in and see that. Then we'll take the ride back down and talk about the rails and how the trains can run opposite directions on the same track. First, before the car gets here, let's take a look at the sensors up here at the top that tell the system where the upper car is located. The upper car only has a very small loading platform, just big enough for the door really, so the car has to stop at pretty much exactly the right place at the top. See these two towers? Pretty sure those are for a photo sensor. When anything passes through that, it means the car is close to the top. As soon as the car breaks that beam, you see it slows down pretty quickly. Let's back up a bit though, because we have two more sensors up here too. Take a look at these switches down here by the track. I wasn't actually able to see anything on the cars that tripped these, but these are pretty basic switches. And I'm guessing there's something on the bottom of each car that, when it passes over here, it trips the switch and tells the system the car is in place. That'd be near the back of each car, I'm guessing. But there's one more thing here too. See the plate hanging down? That obviously doesn't trip that switch, but it could trip another sensor up under there where we can't see it. If I were designing the system, I'd probably use both of these to indicate a full stop. Trip either switch, stop the incline. Redundancy is a good thing. In any case, between the three sensors, they tell the system when to slow down and when the car is in exactly the right position at the top to stop. But what about the bottom? Well, as you can see, you've actually got considerably longer boarding platform here in the bottom. Partly, it's fairly easy to do since the slope is much less at the bottom, but also since the length of the cable changes, we'll talk more about that in a bit, you have to let the bottom car move up and down the platform a bit to account for those cable changes. Let's get on the train now and head down. I'm here early, so I can get right up front. Best seat on the train. As we leave the station, you can see the first problem here. 2 trains, only 3 rails. We're sharing that center rail with the upbound car. That's not going to work, but we'll get to that. It's a standard gauge track, 4 foot 8.5 inches or 1435 millimeters. The rails are standard, but in the middle you see these extra pieces to hold the cables up. There's a bunch of names for these, like rollers, drums, and pulleys, but mostly they do the same thing. The large flat drums without the side flanges just support the cables, keeping them from dragging on the ground and cutting through the ties. The other type they use here, that look like pulleys, not only hold the cable off the ground, but also help to steer the cables a bit. For sharper curves, they use a different device called a sheave, but the incline here is pretty straight, so they don't need those. As we head down the incline, we have a great view of Chattanooga. Today, the roads up to the top of Incline Mountain, while admittedly a bit narrow and winding, are generally passable to most cars, but that hasn't always been the case. I was talking with someone in a gift shop at an overlook for the incline that's coming up. She told me that back in the days of the Model T, it was really hard to get them up the mountain. Due to the fuel feed system on the Model T, you actually had to go up the mountain in reverse up some of the steepest hills. Well, people did this in the summer, but backing up a twisty mountain road in the winter isn't so much fun. This means residents would often park their cars at the bottom, at least in the winter, and take the incline up to the top. She also said the owners of the incline did this as a free service to the locals. In January 1973, the Chattanooga Area Regional Transportation Authority purchased the incline railway and took over operations. You see this little stone structure? Well, prior to the sale, the incline would stop here and pick up and drop off kids who took the incline down to school every day. Before the sale, the owners of the incline charged tourists, of course, but the kids and often other locals rode for free. Now they no longer stop here, and everyone pays. See that bridge up there? Let's jump up there for one of the best views of the incline. The parking lot for the bridge view here is actually at the gift shop that I mentioned. Lots of pretty cool stuff in there, so if you stop to look at the incline, you might want to take a look inside. Looking down, you can see there's 3 rails above what's called the passing loop, crossing loop, or passing siding. When it gets there, it splits to 4 rails for a while, before dropping to just 2 rails below that. As the car goes by, you can see we have both cables, called haul ropes, above the cars. As they go into the passing area, you see that the one currently going down takes the right track, and the one currently coming up takes the left. Each car is assigned a side, regardless of whether they're going up or down, to ensure the cables never cross. Even more interesting is how they do this without using standard switches. Let's jump back on the train and we can take a look at exactly how that actually works. The car we're on is going to be going to the left. Instead of having a wheel flange on the inside of all the wheels, like normal trains, this one actually has the wheel flanges on the outside of the wheels. These outside flanges will carry the car through on this side. If you look at the rails, you can see how that happens. But what about the other car? Well, that one actually has the flanges on the inside of the wheels, like a normal train car. When it gets to the switch, the flanges will force the train to the right side of the track. It does that partially by using the back side of the flange away from the rail and up against these guardrails. Those little guardrails, which you see on switches all the time, are actually designed to do just that and push on the back side of the wheel flanges as needed to keep the wheels going where we want. You don't always use those guardrails in normal everyday railroading, but here we absolutely rely on them. There's actually another way to do this too, which may be even more common on incline railways. In the passing loop, the outside set of wheels for both cars gets wheels flanged on both sides, while the inside wheels have no flanges at all. It's a much easier system, and you don't have to worry about slotting the rail to let wheel flanges through or anything. But nonetheless, the system they use here works too. Coming out of the passing loop, you can see we're moving to the 2-rail section, but the switch works the same way. Let's stop here for a second. See if you can figure out how the wheels go through this one. Remember, the downbound car on the left has outside flanged wheels, while the one on the right has inside flanged wheels. Before completing the trip, there's actually one more thing I want to talk about. Check out these rails. You can see these marks where the cable is cutting into them. Why does that happen? Well, in an ideal world, the cable would be suspended above the rails, high enough that it doesn't. But the drums and rollers that support the cable are pretty badly worn, especially here in this lower section. You can see how the cables have cut through them, since many of them have actually stopped rolling. A conductor told me they're currently closed on Mondays and are working to replace these, but right now they're actually waiting on the actual central shafts and bearings to allow them to continue the process. So doesn't this cause a lot of cable wear? Oh yeah, it sure does. The cables here are typically replaced pretty frequently anyway, as often as every 3 years, and they receive regular X-ray inspections along the entire 2-mile, 3.2-kilometer length of cable. The cables are custom made, and this set was just replaced in July. It's now December, and these cables are 5 months old. I expected they'd expand and contract quite a bit with temperature changes, but they told me that's not actually the case. What does happen, though, which I hadn't thought of, is that they actually stretch as they age, as the braid pulls tighter and tighter together, and that actually happens enough when it's new that they've actually had to already cut off extra cable twice due to the stretching, and they were expecting they'd be cutting it a 3rd time again before very long. But now we're approaching the end of the line and the end of the video. So the incline is still running here today after 130 years here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. one of the major attractions here in town. And it runs every day from downtown Chattanooga here up to the top of Lookout Mountain. Don't let these shiny new cars fool you though. The Lookout Mountain Incline is the Industrial Revolution. Hey, wait just a second before you go. I need your help to keep the channel growing here. First thing you can do is really easy. Just like, subscribe, share this video. Tell all your friends about it. That spreads the word. YouTube will see that and we'll show this to more people. Commenting more than just 2 or 3 words. YouTube says that's the most important thing you can get. It's the best kind of user interaction there is. So you can comment more than just 2 or 3 words. Also, if you're able to and are interested in helping out financially, these are pretty expensive videos to film, a lot of travel costs on top of the hours of work I do here. You can help out at patreon.com/industrialrevolution or become a member here on YouTube or a single contribution through Super Thanks. Also have an affiliate store. If you click that, anything you buy there, a percentage of that purchase will come to help fund the channel. Thanks for your help and look forward to seeing you next week.